Okay, here we are, chapter 4.3, multiplication with decimals and whole numbers. We worked on this with the last lesson, something very similar. We did things like, make sure I have the right tool out here. 3 times 0.2. We realized that 0.2 is just being added 3 times. And we drew pictures, but we can see that we're just adding repeatedly to get an answer. 246, 0.6. Okay, we would add repeatedly to get our answer, and we could have done that using our stick figure analysis. So where each one of these lines represents a tenth. Remember, this square is a whole, one whole, and a stick is a tenth, and a dot is like a 100th. Okay, so this is our model. Okay, so this is the model. I just wanted you to not be confused. It's not an 11. It's not 2 ones. It's 2 tenths. Okay, we got 2 tenths here. We can see right away that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. All right, so we're going to use models today too, but we're going to use it with bigger numbers, and it's going to change it up a little bit. And we're going to not multiply just by decimals. We're going to multiply by decimals and wholes. And what this decimals and wholes means would be if we did like 3 times 3.2. Okay, something like that. Okay, 3.2 is a whole number and a decimal. It's 3 and 2 tenths. Okay, so that's the kind of thing we're going to do. But we're going to get even bigger ones. We're going to just do something like, this isn't huge, but 5.5 times 2.5, or 5 times 2 and 5 tenths. 2 wholes and 5 tenths. 5 times 2 and 5 tenths. So this is 5 times. So it's like adding it 5 times. Okay, but instead of drawing it out, or instead of writing it out, we're going to draw pictures. So we've got 1 whole, 2 wholes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. 1, 2, and 5 tenths. 1, 2, and 5 tenths. 1, 2, and 5 tenths. And I've got, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, so I need to do it one more time. 2 and 5 tenths. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start combining. These are whole numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and that's like 5 times 2 is 10. But we're going to take, we're going to try to make another whole by combining this. These 5 tenths and these 5 tenths makes 10 tenths. And we're going to bring those down, and that makes one more whole. Does that make sense? We're going to do the same thing right here. Going to combine these 10 and bring them around and add one more whole, and that leaves us with 5 tenths. So now if we were to count them up, we don't just have 10, we have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's 12, and then our leftover tenths are 5, so it's 12.5. So now we can figure this out. This is the method number 1, and this is the one that helps us kind of see the math. And then there's kind of the method number 2, which you guys learned last year. This is just traditional multiplication. It looks like I wrote method number, I don't know if that's supposed to be a 1 or a 2. Let's make sure it looks like a 1. I think I did something like a fancy 1 and it came out looking like a 2. I'm not sure. Method number 1 is pictures. Method number 2 is traditional math, where we just multiply 2.5 times 5. Now what you have to do is you have to forget about the decimal. Just imagine it's 25 times 5. And we'll put the decimal back in at the end. In fact, if we count our decimal places, we see that there's one decimal place here. And that's what we're looking for. 5 times 5 is 25. So this is, we're ignoring the fact that it's 5 tenths times 5 ones. Okay, that would get us 2.5, but we're just going to, 5 times 5 is 25. We'll add the decimal later. And then 5 times 2 is 10. 5 ones times 2 ones is 10 ones, plus 2 is 12. And then I count my decimal place here. I count the same number of decimal places in the answer, and I put my decimal in so that it holds those decimal places, 12.5. I already knew that was the answer, and I think most of you guys will recognize that this one is quick, but it's not as visual. We can't see what's happening. And this one, I'm not sure which color I was using. Not that color. This one is slow, but you can see it better. It's more visual. All right, we can understand a little bit better what's happening. So we're gonna, we're gonna do a little bit of each, and then, you guys are just gonna do it on your own. There's two methods. The basic, the important one that they want you to get is that second one. And they do something a little bit silly. It's not silly at all. It's good. We talked about this in class, where when you multiply by a decimal, it's kind of like multiplying, a decimal factor of 1. Let's see if I can explain this. We've got 1.35 times 8. Okay, and we have to change this so that it's sort of like having no decimal in, right? So if we just write 135, because remember I said don't worry about the decimal. 135 would be like if we multiplied this whole thing times 100. If we multiply this times 100, 1.35, it's multiplying it by 100 or 10 to the second power. Really all we have to do is move the decimal 2 places, and that gives us 135. Now we're not really going to do that, but we want to imagine that we're working with numbers that don't have decimals in them. So we're really going to multiply this one. Okay, we start with this problem, 1.35 times 8. We don't want to work with the decimals, so we're going to take the decimal out. It's kind of like multiplying by 1,000. All right, or by hundreds, excuse me. Decimal moves over twice, and we'll go ahead and multiply 5. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 4 is 28. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. And we have 1,080. Okay, I could even put a comma in here to show our period here, 1,080. But what we need to do is we need to remember that we took out that decimal by multiplying by 100. So, I'm going to have to plug in my battery. You guys ignore that. We're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to multiply again, but we're going to multiply by a decimal hundredth, 0.01. Which is like the opposite. This is undoing our times 100. Multiply by 100, multiply by 100th. Goes the opposite direction. This is a descending powers of 10. So we're going down by 2 powers of 10, so the decimal would come back in 1, 2 places. If I use my red pen, 1, 2 places. So really, the decimal moves back over in our final answer, so that if I get this 1.35 times 8 is equal to 10.80. And really what we're doing is we just have 2 decimal places in our answer. We had 2 decimal places in our question. This is sort of like this is a product, but a product is the answer to the multiplication question, and this is the question here, and this is our answer, but we have to have the same number of decimal places in our answer that we had in the question. This is showing how multiply by 100, multiply by 100th. It's kind of like 2 operations that reverse each other, and you can just ignore the decimal, and what happens from now on is you just stop looking at that decimal. I'm going to go get my battery or my cord plug in, so we'll pause this recording. Let's do it again. Let's do another problem. Let's make this one. I'm trying to decide if we should make it easy or difficult. I guess they're all about the same. Say we have 3 times 1.45. Now, really all we have to do is write down 145 times 3, 1.45 times 3, or write it down without the decimal. Just don't forget that decimal is in there. Okay, we're going to multiply. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So 145 times 3 is 4.35. But 1.45 times 3 is actually going to be the same answer, but with the decimal places figured back in. So there's 2 decimal places here. This is that power of 10 to the second power, 100 or 100th, and put the decimal point in so that those 2 decimal places are accounted for. And if we look at it, this whole number is 1, this whole number is 3. 1 times 3, if we estimate, okay, 1 times 3 is equal to 3. And our answer is a little bigger than that. It's 4.35, so it's a little bigger than 3. But notice that we've got a little more than 1. All right, if it were exactly 1, it would be equal to 3, but since it's more than 1, it should be bigger than 3, and it is. Now, it's smaller than 2. If it were 2, it would be 6. If it were 2 times 3, it would be 6. But it's not. It's not quite 2. In fact, it's closer to 1 than it is to 2. This couldn't even round up to 2. But it's almost right in the middle, like 1.5. 1.50 would be 1.5. Anyway, that's how that works. I think you're getting the hang of it. Most of you know how to do the multiplication anyway. You just happen to multiply. You just have to get the numbers down. And I'm sure that we're going to multiply by 2 digits at the next lesson or sometime soon. And yeah, it looks like the next lesson we'll be multiplying by 2 digits, so we'll get a taste of that coming up tomorrow or the next day. All right, you guys have a great day.